Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I hope you're enjoying your first day of Microsoft Ignite. I'm fascinated by the crowd. It's brilliant. Thank you all for coming to attend this session. For those listening online, we have a repeat on Thursday. Okay, this is one of the more popular presentations, and that's quite humbling as well. What we're going to look at for the next 20 minutes is we're going to look at getting rid of your passwords, logging in with passwordless authentication. Okay. So, for those of you who are up front and can see this, I've got a Fetian USB Bluetooth device. I've just turned it on. Probably not close enough with all the other people using signals around there. There we go. So this has got a fingerprint reader on it. Okay. So it says on the screen, take action on your Bluetooth security key. So I'll hold my thumb against it, and it signs me in. Okay. So that's the sort of stuff we're going to look at in this demo. Not sure what that screen pop-up is. Okay, so let's take a look at what we can do and how we can set this up. So I'm going to look. So I'm going to look at things like this. This is, as I said, this is the Fetian device, let's let me get a camera up on here and see if I can help people who are sitting further back than me. And that will be useful. Front-facing camera, there we go. So that's what this one is, okay, the one I've just used. In terms of size, it's got a fingerprint reader on it, okay. So this one doesn't need a PIN number to work on, okay. You may well have seen things like these, the YubiKey, okay, the stickers they're giving away over on the Expo for later on. That's a USB device. That's not a fingerprint reader, although YubiKey did announce that their fingerprint device about an hour ago, and it's getting demoed tomorrow. Okay, so there's the option for biometrics with Fetian, YubiKey as well soon. All right. So let's look at setting all this up. So I've got a demo tenant, and a couple of things I'm going to show you are some of the prep work for setting this up, because of course our users are quite happy to set passwords, and our hackers are quite happy to use the same password, or know the passwords our users have got, and to try and hack our systems because of it. Okay? So I've got two groups, and I'm going to pilot a passwordless rollout for you. Okay? So I've got a group for FIDO2 devices, and I've got a separate group for MS Auth, and the Microsoft Authenticator, and I've got a phone for demonstrating that. So for example, in my FIDO2 group, I've placed Alex, and so I'm going to use Alex as my demo account for that. Okay, and I've got a lady called Lynn in my MS Auth account, and I'll demonstrate that. A couple of things that I've also got for showing around this. Let's just briefly go into password reset. Now, by default, in your Azure AD tenant, self-service password reset is disabled. I've intentionally left it disabled within this tenant because we're going to do some MFA registration process. Now, if I do MFA registration and I have password reset turned on, I have a longer MFA registration setup because I have to register for MFA, and then I have to register for password reset. So I've intentionally turned off password reset in this demo just to make it quicker. I've only got 20 minutes. But I would recommend that if you're rolling this out, you would turn this on so that your users register for MFA and register for SSPR, self-service password reset, at the same time. It makes the registration experience for the user much easier. And last one for going around, security. Now, in my prep for this, I was all ready, and then Azure user interface changed. So all the stuff that we've got today for going through security has all been moved in the last week, and we'll find it under the security node as well. So let's pop into security and see what we can see. Is that working? There we go, yes, okay. And so under security, I'm going to show you in the MFA node. Okay. Again, this is just some of the prep work that you need to do to get all this ready. And there's a link under MFA for cloud-based MFA settings. Now, that'll open up another tab, and this will take me to the legacy, or what I call the legacy MFA settings. So if you've done MFA in the past, and not via conditional access, you've done it for years and years, you'd have had your users under the user link. What we've got here, and are mostly of interest, let's make that a little bit bigger. Okay, ooh, that's a bit too big. There we go. The methods available. Okay, it's important that you have these enabled for a passwordless sign-in. Okay? So specifically, if you want to use a FIDO2 device, you have to make sure you have the bottom option set here, the verification code for mobile app or hardware token. So that must be an option available. It's on by default, but just in case you've turned it off. Okay? And if you want to use the Microsoft Authenticator, the phone, to do passwordless, you need to have the third option, the notification through mobile app option turned on. Okay? Just for notice, this is a demo tenant. There's no paid licenses in this tenant, and that's why call to phone is disabled. Okay? If you had a paid tenant, call to phone would be enabled. Okay? Just to point out why mine looks different than what you're normally used to seeing. Okay? I'll close that tab. I don't need anything else in that. Okay. So back in security, and I've got authentication methods, and this is where the meat of the talk we're going to do exists. So if I go into authentication methods, we'll see that I've got authentication via FIDO security key and authentication via the Microsoft Authenticator. Okay? And I've also got a message at the top saying, make sure that your users are enabled to use the enhanced registration preview. So let's just click that for a moment and see what that's all about. Okay? There are now 2 different ways of registering for MFA. You must use the second of these, the enhanced registration preview. Okay? Up to a month ago, there was 3 methods. They've got rid of the middle one, the non-enhanced new registration info. And so you can see in my tenant that I've got it set to all users for the bottom option in here. Okay? The option above, nothing to do with passwordless, that turned up in the Azure portal about a week ago. And so that's a new one. But the bottom option, the registering and managing security info enhanced feature, I've got that set for all. So let's go back now that I've got all the bits that I need in place. I've got groups from my preview. I've got passwordless setup. Sorry, not passwordless setup. I've got my users. I've got my registration. I've got my MFA settings. And we'll start with FIDO security key. So click on the button. There's not many options. This is really easy to set all this up. Okay, so I want to set up a FIDO security key, and I'm going to do it with I've got a black YubiKey. Where's my camera gone? Just to make that easy for people online to see. So I'm going to use this key. This one's not been set up before, so this is going to be a brand new setup for this device. Okay. So this is also NFC, this particular model, and so if I had an NFC reader, I could use that instead of USB. Okay. So I'm going to enable, yes. I'm going to do a pilot. I could just turn this on for all users, but I'm going to select my users. I'm going to add users or groups, so I can do this for particular users as well. I don't have to be in a group. But I'm going to pick my group that I made earlier that has my user Alex as part of that. Okay? So add that to there. The registration option currently only reads optional. Okay? We do not set this up for the user. The user has to set this up themselves. So we can't, at the moment, get a whole bunch of these devices and allocate them to users and then hand them over to the user. Okay? We hand them over to the user and then walk them through the registration window. Okay? I suspect that things like the registration option, that's where, when it becomes admin rollout rather than user-driven, I suspect that's where we'll start to see some options over there. Okay? Over on the right, allow self-service setup. We can only do self-service setup, as far as I'm concerned at the moment. The user has to set this up. Okay? Enforce attestation. Now, these devices, if you haven't made it yourself, if you're a bit of a tech builder and you built your own, but if you buy them and they're official FIDO2 devices as part of the FIDO2 organization, they'll have a certificate on them that can be tied back to FIDO2. Enforce attestation says, I'm going to check the certificate on the device. Now, it's not one certificate per device. Hundreds of thousands of devices have an identical certificate. So it's not a way of saying, this is Brian's device, but this is a way of saying, this is a YubiKey device, or this is a way of saying, this is a Fetian device, or what have I got here? The side pass from BioKey, and they're up on the conference floor as well. Okay? And so there's a couple of manufacturers out there that you can go and talk to after this session. So it's just a way of saying, yeah, it's an official device. It's not hacked or pretend, should we say. Okay. I've also got, although the documentation says it doesn't work, key restrictions. In testing, I found it did work, but the error messages were a bit obscure. So maybe that's why it doesn't work. Okay? But I could say enforce key restrictions. Okay? And I can then, if I was to do that, let's just turn that one on. Okay. Then it says I need to add a particular AAD GUID, and that will be the GUID of the device. So that will be a way of specifically blocking a device, maybe that I knew was lost. Or that will be a way possibly of saying, well, here's the device I'm giving out. That'll be more work, but here's the device I'm giving out. You can only use the devices I've given, not one that you've brought with you. Okay, for example, from another manufacturer or another company. Okay, so I'm not going to enforce key restrictions, but I've got my user, and I'm going to save my settings. Okay, we'll come and demo it in a moment, but let's just go and set up the Microsoft one while we're in the same experience. So yes for the user, yes for selecting the users that I want, and in this particular case, I'm going to pick my other group, which contains a user called Lynn. Okay, so select and save that. So that's it done and set up. Okay, let's open up a browser. Now this machine is hybrid Azure AD joined. So if I opened up the Edge browser just normally, it would try and sign into my tenant and not my demo tenant. So I need to sign into my demo tenant. So I'll do it as an in-private window. Okay, and we're going to start with Alex. So let's grab Alex's username. That's updated. So let's try office.com. And we're going to sign into Office. Now, Alex, I've got no MFA set up for Alex. So all I'm going to do is just do a normal sign in for Alex. Okay. Because we haven't yet set up the device for him. Or he hasn't set up the device for himself. So we'll sign in. Okay. If I had enabled MFA of any sort, I would have the normal registration process and so on to do MFA. I have to do that before I can register for a passwordless device. To save a bit of time, I've already done the registration for MFA for Alex. But I can go to aka.ms/MFA setup and take me to the registration page for doing this. Okay, that's like the shortcut that will get me to this. Okay. So I'm just going to approve Alex's sign-in on my phone, which would be something that you'll have seen many times before. So that should sign me in. Thank you. Everything's ever so slightly slower when you're in a room full of people using the Wi-Fi, and then just let my heart calm down a little bit while I watch my demos not working. Okay. Okay. So we're going to get up the new registration experience. Okay. So while it and it always seems to do that and then works. Okay? Maybe it'll fix that at some point as well. That's one of those heart-stopping moments, and it's like, oh, no, it is going to work. Okay. So the new registration process, the security info, will show me, when it appears, that I've got a device registered. Okay? So what I'm going to do when it stops spinning, there we go. So there's my phone authenticator, which I've already added just to do MFA. Okay? I'm going to add a method, and I'm going to choose security key. Security key appears on the drop-down because this user has been added to the FIDO2 group, and the FIDO2 group has been added to the authentication policy. If I wasn't logged in as Alex, then I wouldn't see security key in the drop-down. Okay, so we'll click Add, and it says USB or NFC, so we're going to do USB, and it says have your key ready. Put it into the USB port, click Next. Okay, and it's detected my device and is connecting it. So I'll let it finish that, redirecting me to a new window. On a less busy network, this is quite quick. There we go. And I get a pop-up. Okay. Now, this is a brand new device. I've not used this before, so it asks me to create a PIN for this and confirm my PIN. That's because this device is not biometric, okay? So it needs a PIN. And it's got a capacitive sensor on it, so I'll just touch the capacitive sensor. Did that? See that? Let's try that again. Touch my key. There we go. Okay, and we're done. So new device, give it a PIN. Once I've entered the PIN, I'll have the device added for my user. Okay, and let this just finish refreshing and give it a name. So this is red. Call it the red YubiKey because I've got a red sticker on it, and give it a way of identifying the device to the user. You can have lots of them. So for years I've used a non-FIDO2 device. These are my house keys. For those of you, let's put this on the camera again. Okay, so my house keys, and I've got my Google account from years ago on that non-FIDO one, but I've got a whole bunch of Microsoft ones on my FIDO2 device. So they fit quite well on my house keys. Let's pop that out of the way. Okay, I'm all set, it says. So let's close the in private window and open it up again. So I've signed out as Alex, and we're going to go to office.com. So we open up a new browser, ready to sign back in as Alex. Okay. This could be on any machine. Okay. It doesn't have to be this machine because I set it up on this machine. It could be the other machine. Okay. If I had more than 20 minutes, I could demonstrate this across lots of different machines. Okay. And we wait for the internet. Okay. Because I've signed out, it's going to ask me to sign back in. So sign in. And in this case, I'm going to choose sign in options. So I'm not going to enter my username. So click sign in options, sign in with a security key, and it'll pop up the window that we saw a moment ago, and it will get me to confirm my sign in. So it tells me who's popping that one up. Enter my PIN. OK. Touch my security key, and then I'm signed in. Okay, so no username or password. Okay, username or passwordless. So that's a bit of a mouthful. Username less, passwordless. Okay, but I could sign in with this key, and I could take this key off anywhere. Okay, let's just close that one. Let's try. I've got a different YubiKey here. Let's do another in private window. This is one I set up earlier. Let's give you an example of some of the things that we can do. Oops, that was the wrong spelling of office.com. There we go. And so sign in. And with a different key, sign in options, sign in with a security key. I'll get the pop-up. I'll enter my PIN. I'll touch the key. And in this particular example, this key is set up to a number of different tenants. It's not just tied to a single tenant. Still doesn't want me to touch it. There we go. And for example, my personal account's on there. I've got some other demo accounts on there. So I could pick, let's pick Megan, for example. Okay, log in. And this key allows me to log in as Megan. Okay, different tenant entirely. Okay? So I, as a consultant, for example, could quite easily travel around a number of different companies and have a single key set up to the admin account that I do when I do work for other companies. But I don't need a key per customer. So the consultants of you in the room, there's many options we can do that way as well. Okay. Let's have a look at the phone option. Okay. So I'll open up an in private window. So we're logged out again. We'll do the same thing. Okay. Slightly different registration process for phone sign-in. Okay. For phone sign-in, you have to enter your username. So it's passwordless rather than username and passwordless. Okay. And so first time round, I can enter my password and I could sign in and stuff like that. So let's just see, no change there. But let's pop over to my phone. And wait for the phone to appear. There we go. Okay, so I've got Lynn at the top. Okay. For a phone-based passwordless sign-in, okay, I need to click on the account that I've already added via MFA registration and choose the Enable Phone Sign-In option. Okay, so you can see on this that it says I've got a passcode set. It's an Apple device, so I've got Face ID set. I need to do device registration. Okay. You can only register the Authenticator app with a single tenant. So unlike the hardware tokens, where I could do multiple companies on the single device, with the phone, I can only do a single company per phone. Okay. So it gets me to log in for the first time, so just because I don't need to give away my password, I'm going to clear that and sign in. And sign in as my user. There we go. Keep my device secure and register. Okay. So that sets up the secure channel between my device and my tenant so that I can do passwordless without ever... something went wrong, great, okay. But it appears to have worked. Okay, so continue. Okay. So it's set up. Do we think we're done? Let's see what it's going to say. Okay. Phone sign-in enabled, yes. And so up by the Contoso at the top, for those of you in the room pointing at it, we can see a little key icon has appeared. So passwordless is set up for this user. Okay, so let's pop briefly back to the PC and do the same thing again. Open up an in-private session, log into Office, sign in as my user. And last time we did this for my user Lynn, it asked me my password when I click Next. This time round, it should do passwordless. There we go. So it says 27 on the screen. Let's pop back to the phone. And on the phone, it gives me 3 numbers. 27 is one of them. So I have to see my login page and I have to see the phone at the same time. It'll be in one of those 3 positions, and I have to pick the right number. The number will change, and the position of the number on the screen will change. Okay? Let's pop back to my PC. And on my PC, I've been successfully signed in. Okay? So it was passwordless rather than username-less and passwordless. Okay? So I still needed my username. But when I sign in, if someone was to hack and to know my password, okay, they'll get the number prompt. Well, they don't even get the prompt for the password. They'll get the number prompt. And when they get the number prompt, because they can't see the device, okay, they can't pick the right number. And me, if someone's hacking my device and I get the prompt, well, I don't just get an approve, which I might approve thinking it's me. Okay, I get a pick the right number. So from a user perspective, I've got to get past the barrier. I've got to see what I'm logging into, and I've got to see my phone. Okay, and from the what you didn't see because I was looking at the phone at the time, and I was going to show it with the phone tilted away, but I forgot about that. It also needed biometrics. So when I chose 27 on the phone, it could see my face, and it did Face ID. Okay, if it was an Android device, I would have to tap the fingerprint reader on the back. Okay, so your phone would need some form of biometrics to work as well. Okay, so that's passwordless. Let's have a final look. Let's pop over to my tenant. How did I set it up? Let's click refresh there. How did I set it up in the first place so that I could sign into the PC completely? Okay, so that was just signing into the web browser. How do I sign into the Windows 10 PC? So I need a Windows 10 1903 or later device. Okay, it does work with 1809, okay, but you need the manufacturer's extra software on the device as well. With 1903, no extra software needed on the device. Okay, and it's all done in Intune. So I have a quick look. I can go device enrollment. So obviously the PC has to be enrolled with Intune for this to work. Windows enrollment and Windows Hello for Business, although it's got nothing to do with Windows Hello for Business. In the Windows Hello for Business area, I've got this use security key for sign-in, and I can turn that on. So if I was to do enabled there, and this policy is set for all users, which we can see up top there, okay, that would be all users next time they log in onto a PC, okay, it will download their Intune settings, and the icon on the display, which I'll show you again as we finish, would be turned on for every user, for every device that was configured for Intune. Okay. I've also got the option, let's just save that. Okay. I've also got the option in device configuration to roll this out to a smaller group of people. Okay. The Windows enrollment setting is always for all users. I can't change the scope of that. But if I go to device configuration profiles, there's two different ways, one which works and one which doesn't at the moment, for setting this up. Okay. The one that works at the moment is an OMA string, and I can assign that to a select group of users. So for example, I could assign that to my passwordless policy group of users, and then any machine that Alex logged onto, then Alex could use his security key to log onto Windows as well. But if you weren't in the FIDO group, then your machine wouldn't give you an extra icon at login. Okay. And just to bring it up on the screen, and if you're taking notes, maybe rewind the video because it's not so easy to see. But you have to set up a use security key for sign in string. If you Google Bing, if you use your favorite search engine and go use security key for sign in, then you'll get the string that you need to type in, and it's integer and 1. Okay, and you can apply that to a select group of users. Okay? There's also, but I haven't got it working yet, a more, let's say, friendly way of doing the same thing. I can create a device profile, give it a name, let's call it FIDO, choose a platform, Windows 10 and later, and in terms of configuration type, it's identity protection. And under identity protection, I have a use security key for sign in. So that's a really easy way of setting that up, but I haven't got it working yet. So maybe that's going to be the better way of setting it up in the future when it works. Okay? But it doesn't work at the moment. But you would then build that policy and assign that to the users rather than using the OMA string that we demoed earlier. Okay? But then once you've got that set up, you've got your Intune registered machine, and then you log in. Let me just sign out. I need to cover up the camera on this Surface device. Okay. I'm going to switch user. And as we finish off and we get this one back, there we go. I could sign in as that user, sign in options, and it gives me the security key icon that I could use to sign in with. Okay. How long does that take to set up? Well, I've just done it all in 20 minutes, thereabouts. Took 25 minutes in run through, so maybe a bit longer than that. I wasn't keeping time. Okay. But it's really, really easy to set up. If you go to the YubiKey stand, they're giving coupons for money off the tokens, and there's also BioKey, and they're both of the vendors are in the sort of first and second row as you leave here and go towards the security, the expo. So I hope that was helpful to you. Thank you all for coming, and enjoy the rest of your show. Any questions? I'll hang around for a little bit to do some questions. Thank you very much.